With internal, you can create new functions to read data via HTTP requests, which you can then display in a component like a table. To do so, go to the function editor, which you can access in any space by going to the app data and then clicking create new function, or going to the appropriate data source and then clicking on the plus sign there. You can also access this functionality from the data sources in the company settings. So let's first give our function a name up top. And then let's begin to configure our HTTP requests. So for the path, we have an endpoint here that's just riders.json. This will return data about our users. It's a simple GET request, and since this is a simple endpoint, it doesn't require any of the URL parameters, headers, or body, but it's very easy to add those and include those if it's required for your endpoint. So let's quickly just use this button here to run our function and take a look at the results. And you can see that the data that we want is actually contained in something called result. And so what we can do is we can use a transformer to manipulate the response into the format that we'd like to use. So let's go over to transform and let's just use data.result. And now if we run our function again, you can see that the transformed response is now an array of objects with the records that contain, the data that we want. Of course, you can have more complex transformers. We support JavaScript expressions. So here's a look at a more complicated and more involved transformer. And this is something that will pull the relevant fields that we want from the Zendesk API and allow us to get the ticket information that we want. Now, let's go back to our function and configure the outputs of this function. So click on the Outputs tab. One thing that we can do is click Update, and we can automatically infer all the outputs we need, so we don't have to add them manually. And let's configure some of these attributes. So updated at and created at are actually date time fields. And we also want to identify the ID field as the key, since this is the unique identifying field for this data. Now, let's go ahead and save our function. Going into our space, let's add a simple table to see how our function is operating. So we're going to select demo HTTP, and we're going to select the list users HTTP function that we've just created. Let's go ahead and publish and see how this looks. So you can see all of the data is loaded into the table. However, this table is missing some key table functionality, such as the ability to sort, search for specific things, and pagination. You'll see that all the data, there are many rows, all loaded in at once, all 1,000 plus records. So we'll cover how to add these capabilities to your table using reserved parameters in our next HTTP read tutorial.